Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. For today's presentation, our group will present about Synectics model. Our group has 6 members which are Nur Hanani Husna Marzuki, Wan Adeline Nadila, Nur Aina Kasdina, Mai Yu Hong and Chang Chu Wen.
Hello everyone, my name is Ma Yuhang and I will introduce to you the origin of Synectics and what is it. Synectics is a problem-solving methodology that stimulates thought processes of which the subject may be unaware. This method was developed by Prince and Gordon. The process was derived from tape-recording meetings, analysis of the results, and experiments with alternative ways of dealing with the obstacle to succeed in the meeting. The name "Synectics" comes from Greek and means "the joining together of different and apparently irrelevant elements". Gordon and Prince named both their practice and their new company Synectics, where the name was trademarked. It has become a standard word for describing creative problem-solving in groups. And Synectics is a way to approach creativity and problem-solving in a rational way. According to Gordon, synectics research has these three main assumptions. With these assumptions in mind, synectics believe that people can be better at being creative if they understand how creativity works. One important element in creativity is embrace the seemingly irrelevant. Emotion is emphasized over intelligence, and the irrational or over the rational. Through understanding the emotional and irrational elements of a problem or idea, a group can be more successful at solving a problem. Synectics is more demanding of the subject than brainstorming, as the step involves imply that the process is more complicated and requires more time and effort. The success of the synectics methodology depends highly on the skill of a trained facilitator.
Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. My name is Hanani Marzuki, metric number A190165. In this part, I will be sharing with you the mechanism of synectics in problem-solving situation. To understand how synectics work, we must first look at these two things. We begin with the process of how synectics is being applied. The process starts with identifying a problem owner, and then there will be need to define their expectations in terms of what they envision to be the outcomes from the synectics process. And thirdly, we need to ensure the capability of the problem owners in implementing the new solutions. After we get through these three steps, problem owner will then be asked to describe the problem in their perspectives and for them to express it in wishes to enable more spaces for more diverse thinking. The facilitators will then start with generating solution approaches, or what we call as springboards, as many as possible. Finally, the problem owner would select the most promising springboard for them to explore because it is up to them to choose whichever solution approach they want to use. We need to understand that synectics might be a technique in problem solving, but its main objective is not really looking for the solutions to the problem, but more towards applying creative thinking to discover ideas on how to look at a problem in different views therefore providing insights on possible pathways to reach a solution. Second thing that we need to look at here is the metaphoric activity or the use of analogies. This practice is very central to synectics because it is thought that creative ideas are generated when we associate different unrelated elements together, making the unfamiliar familiar and vice versa. So when it comes to analogies, there are three types of analogies. The first one is direct analogy is basically comparing between two distant concepts. It can be as simple as comparing, let's say, students in a classroom and a bunch of fruits at a stall. At first glance, these two are unrelated, but when we apply synectics by trying to make the unfamiliar to be familiar, we can think of possible link to connect those two things together. Students in a classroom can be associated to a bunch of fruits at a stall. When we think of how those students are different in heights and looks, just like how different uh, how different the fruits at the stall are, and just like how different fruits at the stall has different flavor, those students are also different in terms of their personalities and unique traits. Moving on, the second one is personal analogy, or where a person puts him or herself in others' situation. Similarly, in synectics, we're trying to break away from an existing mindset. So let me give an example here as to how we apply that. Let's think of a bird in a cage. The bird is being fed, taken care of, provided with security, and so forth. So if the bird is happy to be there, feeling safe and healthy, it makes sense, right? So here's an analogy of a situation similar to the bird in a cage. Let's think of how colonialism looks like. The people who are being colonized can be referred as the bird in a cage. They are being put under the colonizer's authority. They are being governed, yes, but are they happy? Are they happy that they are socially, economically restricted by the practice of colonialism? Obviously, they are not. So that's one example of how we look at a situation or problem in different perspectives after making an analogy. The last one is compressed conflict, where we describe two contradicting or opposing elements together. Let's say we put these two together, a knife and healing, a healing knife. So between healing and knife, there is an obvious contradiction, where we view knife in a sense that it would be dangerous to use it carelessly, or that knife is a source to injury. Healing, on the other hand, is healing. It's when we are recovering from being hurt or from being injured. So a healing knife just doesn't make sense. But if we think of the knife used by a medical professional like a doctor in a surgery room, it would not make sense, right? Because a surgeon's knife, which we call a scalpel, is a sharp tool used by a surgeon to carry out medical operations in the efforts to treat a patient. So in this perspective, these two contradicting elements would now make sense to be put together. Next, we will be looking at how ideas are being generated. There are three methods that can be used. One is detachment or excursions. Here we will take into account the concept of three levels of mind, and detachment is about making use of the second level of our mind, that is preconscious mind. So when one is being too overwhelmed by a problem, he or she may not be able to think of any idea at all. So what we do is we detach ourselves from the problem for a while. For example, you're trying to write an essay for an assignment and you just couldn't think of anything to start with. So take a break, do something else for a while, because sometimes the idea comes when you're on your bed about to sleep, or while you're staring in the mirror while you're brushing your teeth. So that is all about detachment. The second one is deferment. It is about postponing judgment or evaluation for ideas that are newly generated. The idea is to just let those ideas come and take note of them without considering the practicability, the feasibility, the cost required, etc. The third one is speculation, where we use our imagination to think of ideas, even the wild ideas that we would come up with, because what we wonder today is tomorrow's reality. Think of how people back in the days when Alexander Graham Bell just invented the telephone. If someone thought of how the telephone might someday can be kept in pockets and carried around, he is actually thinking of the future. And so that is the essence of creative thinking. You should just think as far as you can, as creative as you can, because creative thinking is not like logical thinking. Logical thinking explains about things, but it is not powerful enough to create or invent new things like what a creative thinker is capable of. And that is also how we can understand synectics work, the way synectics work. It is about generating new ideas as much as possible with no limits as to how far you can go. This is how synectics solves problems creatively. So the end of my part here, this is just the chronology of the synectics process using the tools I have explained so far. So that is all from me.
Practical steps: how to apply the technique. Step 1. Name your problem. Step 2. Brainstorm analogies to your problem. Step 3. Let the team pick up the analogy they like the most. Step 4. Brainstorm ideas how to solve the analogy problem. Step 5. Translate the brainstorm solutions back to the context of the original problem. Naming of the problem is often the critical part of any problem-solving exercise. If your team is not clear on what is the problem, use 5 whys method. Example: we often misunderstand customer requirements and spend too much time working on wrong software functionalities. Brainstorm analogies to your problem. Transfer your problem statement to another problem. Brainstorm analogies that describe the problem principle in different environments or circumstances. Be creative at this step and encourage any ideas. This is the fun part. Analogy does not have to be from the same industry, business context, or have any relation to the scope of your project. What counts is the principle of the problem to which you create the analogy. Example: I don't understand what my mom wants me to do, and then I do something else which she does not consider helping. The vending machine does not write to the numbers. Push, and then I get a wrong snack. I'm buying the better food I can for my cat, but she does not appreciate that. Step 3. Let the team pick up the analogy they like the most. After the team brainstormed several analogies, let them decide on which they will work further. You may reach consensus by discussion or use any voting technique. Example: I'm buying the best food I can for my cat, but she does not appreciate that. Step 4. Brainstorm ideas how to solve the analogy problem. Remind everyone to forget about the original problem that the team was supposed to solve. The whole group now focus on the new problem. The select an analogy lets the team brainstorm top solutions for the problem analogy. Give them enough time to switch their minds to the new problem to ensure they don't relate their thinking to the original issue. Follow the common brainstorming rules to encourage everyone to participate and don't dismiss any ideas. Example, let the cat taste samples before let the cat cook by himself. Let the cat write her own cookbook. Teach your cat sign language so that she can point out what she likes for lunch. Ask other people who have cats to learn with what they have success pick up flavors the cat likes and mix them for her lunch. Step 5. Translate the pre-formed solutions back to the context of the original problem. Here comes the most important part. The group is now instructed to look at the brainstormed solutions for the problem analogy and transfer the solutions ideas to point solutions of the original problem. Help to facilitate the discussion by focusing on following the solution principles. Example, pick up flavors the cat likes and mix them for her lunch. Transfer to the original problem. Don't complete large feathers before presenting them to the customer. Split the customer requirements in smaller pieces and gather their feedback one by one. Adjust your standing based on the received feedback and only then process to their integration into bigger part of the software.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nur Aina Kasdina bint Abdul Razak. My matrix number is A191143. For today's presentation, I will talk about the advantages of Synectics model. Firstly, it helps to increase understanding for a particular topic or issues. Studies has found that the Synectics model provides an opportunity for students to develop thinking skills through metacognition. What is metacognition? Metacognition is an understanding or awareness of one's thought processes. There's a relationship between knowledge concepts from abstract to more concrete, thus making it easier to understand and contextualize concepts that are difficult to understand. Next, it will encourage students to think innovatively. Synectics is designed to activate student creativity and help them to see all ideas in new ways through employing various forms of metaphoric thinking to activate generative thinking. Moreover, it mobilizes both sides of the brain, the right brain, which is the dreamer, and the left brain, the reasoner. And lastly, it will foster new ideas. That's all from me. I will pass the presentation to the next presenter. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Wan Adli Nadila binti Wan Nasrul Hakim. My matrix number is A191132. Now I'm going to talk about the disadvantage of synectic technique. Synectics is a complicated technique which requires more time and effort, so the user of this technique has to be very focused during the whole process. The vocabulary of this technique may inhibit students. Terms like synectics, metaphor, analogy, and compressed conflict may be imposing at any grade level. The process may be difficult to explain to the students, as teacher may not know the best way to explain the process because of the number of steps required to conclude the exercise, and it may intimidate the students and the teacher. So it is the necessity of trained leader to keep creative process in flow and effective performance. There will be many efforts required from the leader of the group to keep the discussion in flow, formulate the initial problems and the desired outcome. The success of the synectic technique depends highly on the skill of a professional leader or facilitator. It requires much preparation and efforts to compose a good synectic group. The method heavily depends on the participants, their knowledge, work experience, fantasy, and creative imagination. For good results, participants have to be able and in the mood to fantasize. It works better for an individual problem than a multi-layered problem. Sometimes participants working individually with synectic tools generate more qualitative ideas than those participants together in a group. So the technique is not very effective for work in big group. The use of this technique requires a lot of time, and most companies very rarely apply synectics because they think it is too complex and difficult. As a conclusion, the key mechanism of synectics technique is bringing together a diversity of people joining together of different concepts, things, and layers of reality, embracing emotions and intellect, irrational and rational components, both conscious and subconscious processes, left brain and right brain thinking, deliberate efforts, and free flight of imagination. This multi-level synergetic unity leads to the birth of a new brilliant ideas that may be transformed into an effective solution to problems.
Here's our the reference link. Thank you.